posted on our program website. This will be posted on our program website following the info session. We do ask that folks please hold their questions for the Q&A portion. We will have a dedicated Q&A portion in the back half of this meeting. The presentation should only last about 20-25 minutes. If folks do have any questions, feel free to use the hand raise function, which is now in the reactions tab. It has moved around in Zoom, so please note hand raise is in the reactions tab. And folks can also use the Q&A, not the chat function, please, as we will not see those, but we will be monitoring the Q&A and we will be responding to questions there. Before we dive into the slides, this is an hour-long information session to provide you with an overview of the IES program and provide an opportunity for attendees to ask any clarifying questions about the program itself. We'll go ahead and get started. So today, I will be speaking along with my counterpart, Julia Dumaine, who is the Supervisor of Strategy and Operations at the Connecticut Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, or PURA, which we sometimes also call the Authority for short. My name is Eli Asher. I'm a Regulatory Innovation Manager at Stratagen, and Stratagen is the program administrator. So we have been contracted to administer this program on PURA's behalf. Before we dive in, just wanted to note that we might be having some functionality issues with the Q&A panel. We're trying to enable that if possible. If that's not possible, folks should nonetheless be able to use the hand raise function to be able to ask any questions. And perhaps we might also use the chat, but for now, let's plan on having folks, generally plan to raise hands for any questions once we get to the Q&A portion. So with that, today we'll just be providing a high-level introduction to the IES program, give you an overview of the program's objective, its vision, our purpose, the structure, etc. We're going to do a quick review of some upcoming key dates related to the program, a brief demo of the IES website itself, and then we'll open the floor for discussion and Q&A. The objectives of today's session are primarily to provide interested applicants, you all, and key stakeholders with an overview of the IES program. Again, IES is short for the Innovative Energy Solutions program. We will be highlighting upcoming application deadlines and then provide a platform for folks to ask some questions. With that, I will pass it over to you, Julia, to go over the next slides, and feel free to just say next slide and I will click through for you.
Perfect. Thanks, Eli. Welcome, everyone. My name is Julia Dumaine. I am the Supervisor of Strategy and Operations for the Connecticut Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, which is the authority that authorized the Innovative Energy Solutions program. Could you go to the next slide, please, Eli? So I just wanted to provide a little bit more context about the origin of this program in Connecticut, why we are launching this, and how it fits in with the rest of our grid modernization programs that we've been pursuing in Connecticut. So in October of 2019, PURA issued an interim decision in our docket 17-1203, which is our grid modernization docket. And for those of you that aren't familiar with regulatory proceedings, all matters before the authority, all decisions we make come through a docket. So docket number 17-1203 was our grid modernization docket, also known as our equitable modern grid framework. Under that framework, we had 11 subtopics that we investigated, and these were determined to be a subset of all of the potential topics that we saw being the most critical for modernizing Connecticut's grid at the time. So this included things like affordability, electric vehicle charging, storage deployment, non-wire solutions. There's multiple different dockets. But the authority also recognized that this, while this list was pretty comprehensive, it would not ever be able to contain all of the possible pieces of grid modernization or capture any kind of innovation that would be coming forth in future years. So one of these subtopics was known as the innovation pilots subtopic. So PURA opened a reopener docket 17-1203 REO5 to look at this, and through that proceeding and stakeholder process and investigation, the Innovative Energy Solutions program was created. And so this came through a decision issued March earlier this year. And the goal really is to use this program to enable the deployment of high value project solutions that might not otherwise be possible or expedient within the current regulatory environment. We determined that this proactive programmatic approach to deploying and scaling innovative grid solutions is necessary to the public interest and is pursuant to our statutory responsibility of ensuring that our electric distribution companies provide safe, reliable, and affordable electric service to all customers. So we can go to the next slide now, Eli. Great, so this is a pretty much the IES program in a nutshell. And some of you may recognize these slides from our overview video that we have released on our website, on PURA's website and the IES website. So you may be familiar with these already, but at a high level, it's a $25 million a year regulatory sandbox program. Projects participating in each annual cycle can get up to $5 million to deploy a pilot project selected by the authority. We are focusing specifically on electric grid pilot programs, technologies, and products. And the goal is that these pilots will eventually be scaled up to deliver benefits to all ratepayers. And by all ratepayers, I mean those across Connecticut's two largest utilities, which are Eversource and the United Illuminating Company, which together serve about 1.5 million ratepayers. And the real purpose of this is to, at its core, further Connecticut's grid modernization and decarbonization objectives, which I should have mentioned at the first slide, but we have 4 key objectives in our overall grid modernization framework, which are to support or remove any barriers to Connecticut's green economy, enable a cost-effective transition to a decarbonized future, enhance customers' access to more resilient and reliable commodities, and advance the ongoing energy affordability dialogue in our state, which has very high electric rates. So we can go to the next slide. So there were 5 overarching design principles that were informed both by the authority's framework and those 4 objectives that I just listed, and then stakeholder input throughout the procedural process in 17-1203 REO5. Ultimately, this resulted in prioritizing economic viability and equity, which really focuses on creating an opportunity to advance solutions with the potential to deliver value to all of our customer classes and providing economic development benefits to Connecticut. Transparency is essential. This is required to illustrate how the funds are being spent and outcomes are measured. You know, being able to clearly demonstrate how this program is benefiting ratepayers and the state is crucial. We also want to address a diverse portfolio of solutions and market gaps, or address market gaps, because this will both increase potential benefits and reduce risk to ratepayers. We also are looking to make sure that this program does not just end up with a handful of pilot programs, which of course are valuable because you can learn from them, but ultimately we really want these innovations and technologies to be delivered at scale. So projects that successfully demonstrate their benefits will be given an avenue to scaling across the 2 EDCs in Connecticut, the electric distribution companies. And then last, this is supposed to be an iterative, continuous learning process. So each cycle we hope to learn more and improve the program and the benefits that it delivers over time. So right now we have approved for 5 cycles. So each cycle we intend to take what lessons we learned in the previous one and apply them in the next one. All right, next slide. And the last thing that I want to highlight before I turn it back to Eli is that this program is really designed to be a ecosystem of engagement across a variety of key partners and stakeholders in Connecticut. So of course we have our utility regulator, PURA, that will ultimately issue a decision on which proposals are piloted and funded for piloting. But we also are working directly and collaborating with Eversource, United Illuminating, Connecticut's Green Bank, our Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, our quasi-public venture capitalist fund, Connecticut Innovations. We have representation from Yale and other economic development organizations such as CT Next. And then of course, being able to engage with other innovators that are participating in the program. So we hope that this will become a very collaborative, innovative and engaging process and program. So with that, I will turn it back over to Eli to provide some of the more specific information regarding this year's cycle. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Julia. So I'll continue to go through the slides here. And as a reminder, we'll have an open forum for questions from participants in this call at the end of the presentation. So I want to first speak to the theme of the IES program. Each iteration, each cycle of the IES program will have a dedicated theme. And this year's cycle, the first cycle of the IES program, is focused on demand side flexibility. The way we define demand side flexibility is the ability to shift or reduce electricity demand or consumption from a device's normal electricity profile. This includes solutions that will help maximize the grid and end use flexibility. For example, load control and optimization to balance the electric system. There are obviously more sub-elements, if you will, of demand-side flexibility. And so we've noted potential innovations could include advanced forecasting, automation, flexible winter peak, and thermal storage. These are just examples and not necessarily comprehensively cover every single type of demand-side flexibility solution that could be out there. I want to add that we'll note that it is not absolutely required that every single project applying to cycle 1 of the IES program adhere to this exact theme. Though projects that do relate to this theme will be given higher priority as PURA and Strategen, as the program administrator, assess the viability of applications. There are nonetheless additional secondary themes. Julia began to speak about the equitable modern grid framework that PURA has developed. These themes you can see on the screen here reflect those equitable modern grid framework themes. And all of these we consider secondarily part of the IES program cycle 1. So if your project does not necessarily cleanly fall within the demand side flexibility realm, if you will, it could alternatively address one of these topics you see on your screen today, such as affordability, storage, AMI, non-wires alternatives, and other similar topics. I won't read through every single one you see on your screen here. In addition to the themes, we want to provide a little bit of extra information on what an IES program cycle will look like. As you can see, it's a 4-phase cycle. On January 31st, which is when we're anticipating that PURA will issue a formal solicitation for parties to start applying to this program, at which point they'll be able to do so via the website. So that first phase will begin on approximately January 31st, in just 1 week from today. And this is the initial ideation and screening phase, in which innovators should submit relatively high-level concept proposals. You'll be able to see what the application form looks like on the website, which we'll provide a link to later, but for folks' awareness, it's ct-ies.com. So parties will submit relatively high-level concept applications within the first phase, and the program administrator and PURA non-decisional staff will review those applications to ensure that programs do indeed meet the eligibility requirements of phase one of the IES program. Applications that do not necessarily meet those requirements will be recommended to potentially pursue further action within other CT PURA programs. However, for the participants that we do approve to move forward with a phase two application, the next step will then be for them to fill out a more detailed application that starts to speak to the project benefits, project costs, what an implementation tracking plan will look like for deploying the project, collecting relevant data and reporting on that data. And one more thing to clarify is that this phase two process will follow towards the end of phase one, what we're planning to have in mid to late April, date still TBD, a one-day pitch fest by which certain phase one applicants will be invited to present at this pitch event. That would come towards the end of phase one. Not being invited to that pitch event will not at all preclude any folks from not being able to apply in phase two. So after folks submit those more detailed phase two applications, approved projects will be able to move into the phase three project deployment stage. And when I say approved projects, I want to clarify that there are a handful of decision makers involved in the process. Stratagen acting as an extension of PURA as program administrator, the IAC or the Innovation Advisory Council, which is made up of stakeholders in Connecticut kind of involved in innovation, who will be able to provide recommendations on which projects move forward. And ultimately, PURA, the authority itself, will have ultimate decision-making in which projects move forward into the phase three deployment stage. In the phase three deployment stage, pilot projects will begin deployment, data collection, data reporting over a 12 to 18 month period. Following the deployment period, there will be a phase four cost benefit analysis, and recommendation from PURA regarding whether a project should move forward to submit an application to scale throughout the states to EDCs, UI, and Eversource. So successful pilots that have demonstrated benefits will be able to seek full-scale deployment in the state. To provide some more detail around project eligibility criteria and evaluation metrics, the phase one eligibility criteria is designed to ensure that projects avoid a competitive advantage for the EDCs, avoid an unreasonable impact to Connecticut ratepayers, electricity customers, that projects reasonably advance decarbonization goals of the state, that they have the potential for innovation, are relatively complete projects, address gaps in current offerings within the Connecticut EDCs, and demonstrate an impact to underserved communities. In the phase two application, which as I mentioned, starts to get more detailed, more into the weeds, participants will start delineating costs and benefits of their associated project, an estimate of participants served, customer, community, and energy benefits, provide various diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI metrics, and then provide the project implementation tracking plan that I mentioned, which will detail the various execution stages of each project's cycle one life cycle and the associated milestones, any metrics, and how to evaluate those metrics that will be proposed initially by the applicant and agreed to with PURA, with the authority, and then a plan for data collection and reporting on that data, which again will help inform our phase four assessment. A little bit more detail on how projects will be evaluated for deployment at scale. As I mentioned, in that phase two application, innovators will be expected to submit a detailed project implementation tracking plan that will incorporate various milestones for achievement and associated metrics along with those milestones and various data for reporting along the way. That tracking plan will guide data collection over the 12 to 18 month deployment period in phase three, and then ultimately will be used to inform PURA's recommendation on whether a project should be scaled or not scaled across the states, across Connecticut. And a cost benefit analysis in phase 4 will be conducted to assess project impacts, quantifying impacts where possible, including energy and environmental impacts, cost impacts, and more qualitative customer experience impacts for applicable projects. To highlight the 3 pathways to get involved, first is an innovator-led pathway. So an innovator-led pathway refers to any third-party product owner or solution provider that is not an EDC. By third party, we essentially mean non-EDC. These Path 1 projects should be focused on innovative ways for maximizing the demand side flexibility of the grid, or should alternatively fit within the other EMG framework themes we identified earlier. These projects cannot affect grid infrastructure that is owned by the utilities due to specific regulations. Pathway 2 is for utility or EDC-led projects that should largely be focused on innovative customer programs or tariff structures. And these would be projects where a third-party innovator is not particularly involved. The goal is to select, at least if possible, one project from each of these pathways. And the third pathway is a utility innovator partnership pathway. To clarify, the program itself will not be directly facilitating interactions between innovators and EDCs. However, as I mentioned, we will host that one-day pitch event in mid to late April, where EDCs will be available, innovators will be there pitching ideas, and there will be some opportunity to tee up potential collaboration. But nonetheless, the program will not be facilitating it directly. And so parties that are interested in pursuing a utility innovator partnership third pathway proposal should directly reach out to utilities. These proposals should, similarly to pathway 1, be focused on cutting edge technologies and otherwise are relatively similar, except for that these would be involved between both the utility and the innovator. To provide just some upcoming milestones, we are anticipating that the phase 1 formal solicitation is issued by PURA on January 31st. At that point in time, the website, which is again ct-ies.com, will have its application portal open. Right now, the website is fully available and functional. However, you will not be able to hit that submit button for any phase 1 applications. We will keep the application portal open until March 1st of 2023. So applicants will just have over a month or so to submit initial applications. Then we will plan to conduct outreach to innovators who are selected for Pitch Fest, the one-day pitch event, which again, we're anticipating will happen between April 17th and 21st, one day during that week, with an exact date still to be determined. As I mentioned before, but I do want to highlight again, phase 1 applicants who are not necessarily selected to attend the Pitch Fest may nonetheless still be approved to submit a phase 2 application. So not being invited to the Pitch Fest is not an indication whatsoever that an applicant should not continue to move forward throughout the process. Following the pitch event, we'll announce our selections for phase 2, anticipated around May 1st of this year, and we'll have about 45 days for parties to submit phase 2 applications. I think finally, or almost finally, wanted to provide a brief demonstration of what our website looks like. Again, you can see what the website is at the bottom there, ct-ies.com. If folks do forget the exact web address, just Googling CT PURA IES should hopefully get you to the right place. Worst case, it should take you to PURA's homepage, which can then point you to this website. So the program will have a dedicated website to increase transparency. As you can see, some of the elements of the website, we will have our phase 1 concept application portal So this is what it kind of looks like today. We're noting that submissions will not be open until a week from today. So please don't fill out the form yet, otherwise filling it out will get wasted. So we recommend checking back on January 31st for applications. You'll be able to apply, I'll just go back a slide here, very easily through the apply page. You can also see that the website contains pages dedicated to various details about the program, discussing other relevant elements about the program's governance structure, the rationale used to develop the program, and other helpful resources that were utilized in developing the program itself, as well as an FAQ page for any questions that we are anticipating that folks might have. Hopefully you'll be able to find some answers there. I also want to note that you will be able to contact us through this page. There is going to be a button where you can just click send an email. It will populate an email that goes to info@ct-ies.com, at which point we'll be able to see those emails. As mentioned in the resources page, you'll be able to see a document library, which highlights some of the documentation that was used to develop this Innovative Energy Solutions program, how the program was designed, and various elements related to an EDC implementation plan, including what the EDCs identified as their grid needs and their customer needs in existing program inventory, so you can understand kind of what those gaps are within Connecticut today, and therefore what innovative solutions or uninnovative solutions might look like. These documents also contain a list of EDC's preferred focus areas for projects, for Pathway 3 projects where they'd be looking to partner, and then also EDC outreach plans, which would also be applicable for folks seeking to apply in the third pathway, the EDC Innovator Collaborative Pathway. Finally, as mentioned, just wanted to note that the applications will be open on January 31st, pending PURA's issuance of that final solicitation. So please feel free to check the website starting now, just so folks can start to understand more information. There's a great 2-minute video that explains much more succinctly everything that we explained here, which can be a helpful reminder for those who are seeking to submit applications. But the applications will be opening, we anticipate, in exactly a week from today, and then you'll have just over a month to be submitting those applications. So we are very much looking forward to see how you will be able to help shape Connecticut's grid. Whether you are an innovator from in-state or out of state, we're open to all opportunities. Again, we are accepting emails to info@ct-ies.com. Folks can please feel free to start using the website, start asking questions via the contact submission form there. And again, you can go to ct-ies.com. With that, I think we can end our presentation and begin getting some and hopefully answering some questions. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Eli. So maybe we will start with, because yes, again, apologies on the Q&A function. We received 2 questions in the chat. So let's, all right, let's go through those and then we'll go to the hand raise. So the first question is, pathways 1 and 3 appear tech product oriented and pathway 2 utility tariff oriented. Can a proposal include both technological and rate tariff design elements? Yes, but I think that would have to be a, so and then the last part of that question is, if so, how does that fit as pathway 3? So any type of engagement you would have to, and coordination you would have to do in modifying any kind of offering through the utilities I would envision that being a pathway 3 project. Let's see, next one is, are technologies that work on or optimize the transmission grid eligible for the IES program? Yes, as long as they are designed to benefit the ratepayers of Connecticut we can contemplate projects that optimize transmission.
And I'll just briefly add that projects will not be able to have components that interfere at all with the EDC's grid infrastructure. Nonetheless, just wanted to delineate that one, additional design requirement of any project.
Thanks for that, Eli. Is this only for unproven innovative solutions still in a startup stage? Thank you. This is a great question. The goal of this is to attract innovations and solutions that are looking to test their benefits and demonstrate their benefits, but also are ready to be scaled for full-scale development. So if you are in a startup phase where you are still just at the beginning testing phases and looking to demonstrate your benefits, we might recommend that you come back in a later cycle, because ultimately the goal is that we would be able to deploy this on a statewide basis, cost effectively and efficiently for all ratepayers. Anything to add to that, Eli?
No, Julia, well covered. Thank you.
Do you have to be a US citizen to apply? No. You need to be able to deploy your product in Connecticut.
And you will need to have a business license for you to be approved to operate in Connecticut either today, or that is something that you will need to be able to obtain within 30 days of being selected as a program participant.
Great. Let's see. We're having a lot in here, so maybe we can take some hand raise questions. I see David Wright has his hand raised. I think it looks like you're able to unmute yourself if you'd like to ask your question.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so it seems to me the problem is multifaceted. So my first question is whether the program will entertain collaborative proposals. And then the second, if the answer to that question is yes, the second follow-up question would be whether Stratagen would be interested or able to set up a sort of a community dialogue session, like a Zoom session where people could network and get a better idea of what other people hear. I mean, there are many people here, so that might have a chance to speak amongst each other. So organizing a session for that.
Yeah, thanks for that question, David. I'll start, and Julia, you can feel free to add on. I think we would be absolutely open to seeing collaborative applications. We would just ask that in your application, you kind of, as clearly as possible, delineate the collaborative elements, which elements are potentially owned by one entity versus the other, trying to clarify as much as possible about how that collaborative pathway would work. So yes, I think we would be, absolutely open to reviewing those applications. In terms of developing hosting some type of networking info session, I think that's something we can most definitely consider. I don't know if we can explicitly commit to that today. However, that's a great question. We've noted that, and we'll take that back to discussion with PURA and determine if that's something that we would be able to do within the program. So thank you for that question. And
Great.
Julia, if you have anything to add, please feel free.
Thank you.
Nope, that was great. Thanks, Eli. All right, so going back to the chat here, have Eversource and UI provided contacts for Pathway 3 discussions? Yes, Eversource and UI have both identified contacts in the docket, which are on the PURA IES webpage. This might be a good flag that we may need to add that to the CT-IES portal, though, Eli. But yes, we do have specific contacts for communicating with the EDCs. Is there going to be a matchmaking service in between companies for these projects? Example, how would a battery manufacturer find a CT developer to utilize their products? No, this is not designed to be a matchmaking service. However, we do have sort of addressed in the the question earlier, this is going to be a very collaborative and engaging environment. We're looking to create opportunities for communication across different types of stakeholders. We have our Connecticut Innovations team on board, who are a quasi-public venture capitalist agency that also have a climate energy tech fund and are very well versed in a lot of these different companies in Connecticut, and will probably be able to provide, informal advisory services, so, and contacts and connections, because that's really their mission. So anything to add to that, Eli?
No, thank you.
Let's see. Did I hear correctly that a part of the website will show utility areas of interest for Pathway 3? Eli, you want to take that one?
Yes, absolutely. Let me see if I can just bring that back up. Yes, if you go to the website, this is just a screenshot of kind of what the top of the homepage looks like. You'll see this resources tab right here. And then under that resources tab, there's going to be a document referred to as the EDC implementation plan. And then you'll be able to see within that document, we've kind of noted the page numbers here of all of the various components that reflect essentially what the EDCs are most interested in terms of partnering on projects. So feel free to look at it through the resources page on our website. And if you feel there isn't any information or you have further questions, just feel free to reach out to us via email.
Great. Going through. You shared the timeline for phases 1 and 2. Is there visibility yet for phase 3 and 4 timing? This is a great question. So this is more contingent on the approval process that goes through the formal PURA process or decision-making process after phase 2, when we, as Eli described, Stratogen, myself, and the Innovation Advisory Council provide a recommended set of proposals to PURA to decide on whether or not they'll be funded for their pilot phase. The decision that was issued in March had indicated that by the end of this year, we would have a decision for deploying projects into their pilot phase. So it would start in early 2024. But that is conditional upon the decision being issued. So it's hard to give a more specific timeline on phases 3 and 4 because of that. So again, since phase 3 is 12 to 18 months, that would put phase 4, if everything went exactly according to plan, sometime in the middle of 2025 for this first cycle. So this is a good opportunity to address another question that I had seen in here, which is, you mentioned the cycle 1 theme is demand side flexibility. Is there visibility yet on other cycle themes? So one of the key roles of the Innovation Advisory Council is to serve as this advisory board that is well-versed in the energy needs and customer needs and economic development of Connecticut. And this helps to inform each year's primary theme. These are not determined until the December, usually before the next cycle launches. So cycle 2 will launch in January of 2024. So to be clear, all of the cycles overlap with each other, but we launch a new one every year. But, this has not been decided, but things that have been discussed both in the decision and, elsewhere publicly, otherwise, have been things like beneficial electrification technologies, resilience and reliability, things like that. So ultimately, we're really looking for projects that address public policy initiatives and grid needs. So I hope that helps to answer that question. If you have more, maybe Eli.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. That was really helpful. I'll just briefly add that while cycle 1's primary focus, preferred focus is certainly on demand side flexibility type solutions. Just wanted to highlight once again that we are open to applications that cover the other, I believe it's 11 equitable modern grid themes that we presented earlier. So you'll be able to see that information on our website that delineates not just examples of demand side flexibility solutions, but also what the equitable modern grid themes are, which are essentially the secondary themes, lower priority set of themes for this first cycle. So depending on if your project might be able to fit within those secondary themes, you may not necessarily need to wait for a future cycle in order to apply.
All right, we have another question. On slide 13, you mentioned avoids EDC competitive advantage. Can you please elaborate on this? Yes, Eli, are you able to elaborate on that?
Sorry, Julia, can you repeat the question?
Yes. On slide 13, you mentioned one of the criteria being avoids EDC competitive advantage. Can you please elaborate on this?
Yes, and I think this, may ultimately largely focus on EDC initiated projects, but the idea is that we want to, ensure that there's no project that unfairly provides any type of competitive advantage for the EDCs. Specifically, we would note that it's important to, I would say, avoid, but I guess I wanted to highlight both avoiding an unreasonable ratepayer impact, which would be excessive cost to customers, to Connecticut electricity customers for, anything that is not providing commensurate benefits with those costs. And then kind of on the other side of that coin is anything that would provide, an advantage for an EDC to be able to, I would say, go beyond its current capabilities, if that makes sense, fitting within the existing regulations. I don't know if that provides a sufficient or clear explanation, but Julia, if you have anything to add, feel free.
I think that covers it, but we can provide, there's more information that will be provided in the formal solicitation coming from PURA. It's really, when that is released, you will see that that's really meant to be a guide to submitting an application and provides more clarity and details on what goes into the application on the CT-IES website. Let's see, are any of the concerns in terms of cybersecurity infrastructure concerns for deploying some of these technologies, especially electronically controlled ICS type products? Is there a vetting strategy currently being looked at in this space? The EDCs are responsible for maintaining their cybersecurity requirements. Those are also included in the EDC implementation plan, which is included on the website. So if you have further questions about cybersecurity, that's available there. What is the best way for interested stakeholders to receive updates about the IES program? So yes, should we sign up for docket updates, or will there be a mailing list? Yes, there will be a mailing list. So we will be following up with you after this meeting to share this recording as well as and links if relevant. But absolutely, I also recommend subscribing to the PURA docket distribution list, which you can do by going to the public participation page on PURA's homepage and going through that system. There is a step-by-step guide to setting up your subscription to any PURA dockets there. How
Thanks,
many
Julia.
years of? Oh, sorry.
I'll just briefly add. Yeah, if for folks interested in signing up to the mailing list, going through PURA's website and getting the subscription to all of the docket filings will be the best route. And then otherwise, I would say to just continually check the ct-ies.com website for other occasional updates.
How many years of theme cycles are currently funded? The decision indicated 5 cycles will be funded. So with this one launching in 2023, it should go through 2028. Solar panels for commercial application do not qualify. This is an example of a type of technology that is not necessarily filling a market gap, because PURA offers multiple other deployment programs for solar arrays. Anything to add there, Eli?
No, thanks, Julia.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, here. Eli, maybe you can take this one. How will pilot funding scale across the phases? And I can add more to this if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that this program is designed to work is that in the cycle in which an applicant is approved for deployment, they will be limited to $5 million in funding per project. However, that essentially just governs the phase 3 deployment stage of the Innovative Energy Solutions program. There is not a specified budget determined for in the future scaling any of these programs. So the way that it will essentially work is after an applicant has deployed in phase 3, in phase 4, we'll conduct a cost benefit analysis that will help provide PURA with, to ultimately inform a recommendation whether or not that project should be scaled up throughout the state, essentially if it demonstrates that it provides greater benefits than its costs. And it will have to be decided through that specific future application process and future funding mechanism what the actual funds for a full-scale deployment look like. I think that would not be governed by the Innovative Energy Solutions program itself. However, and that would instead be decided through the following on application process for deployed projects that we do recommend for scaling.
That's great. Thanks, Eli. I do see another hand raised, so I'm going to go and check on that. Let's see. Kevin Kelleher, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you very much. With Marmon Electric, Connecticut-based company. Oh, just I know you can't qualify me right now, but just to see if we're headed in the right direction, we have an innovative charging cable, which would for high-powered DC fast charging for electric vehicles. I see that ZEV is a subgroup of the first phase. It would enable, or one of the problems with adoption of EV fast charging for utilities, especially, is the concern about liquid and electric. This would, I could see it as a way of increasing deployment and having utilities adopt. But I wanted to see if that's the kind of project that you think that we should apply for in this.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Kevin. I would say without being able to view additional details at this moment, I think that's an application that we would be open to considering. It seems to me like it fits potentially within the demand side flexibility theme even, and if not, I think at least within one of the alternative equitable modern grid themes. Again, can't guarantee right here that we would review and approve your application to move towards phase 2, but it seems like it's reasonable, and I would encourage you to apply.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks for that question so much. That was helpful. Are you able to share some information about the structure of the project grading and prioritization rubric that will be used for these cycles?
I'm happy to take that, Julia. Yes, so I'll try to delineate a little bit about each stage. As I mentioned, phase 1 is really intended to be, frankly, a lighter lift for applicants. We're not looking for completely robust, 100% complete applications in that first phase. So that first phase, what we'll be looking at is essentially, do you meet all of the eligibility requirements. And I can try to jump to that slide. And so the left-hand column kind of delineates the eligibility criteria that we will be evaluating each phase one application against. It's a largely an exercise to ensure that each application checks all of those boxes that we've bulleted here on the left-hand side of this slide. That will entail a review by the program administrator team and PURA staff, and will also be informed by recommendations from the the IAC, the Innovation Advisory Council. In phase two, it will be a little bit more robust of a process. Kind of the idea is to screen out projects that don't fit within that first phase, and then to really understand what the project benefits, costs, a tracking plan look like in that second phase. So that is going to be a bit more detailed of an application. We'll be asking parties to, provide a lot more of those quantitative benefits, quantitative costs to the extent you have them. And then in phase two, the applications will essentially be graded along the lines of kind of what you see on the right-hand side of the screen. We'll be looking at what types of participant segments they're serving, whether it addresses underserved communities, low to medium income customers. We'll be looking at, what quantitative detail you're able to provide on project costs, on benefits to the extent you're able to quantify those benefits. That will be helpful to see in applications. How complete an application is, how innovative a project idea is, and essentially, whether it therefore addresses current gaps within the state, how comprehensive a project implementation tracking plan is. And, as you can see here, that will entail delineating all the execution stages of a project, what the various milestones will need to look at to say, did this project achieve the milestone? And therefore, are they eligible to recover those costs that they expended? What metrics are offered within that project implementation tracking plan, whether they can be reasonably evaluated by data that the company can provide, and kind of a cadence and a reporting and a structure for how all of that data gets, ultimately sent to the program administrator for evaluation in phase four. Hopefully that provided some guidance on kind of how it will work in phase one and phase two.
Thank you. That was really helpful. All right, it looks like we're almost done. We have one more that I see for now. Oh, I see two actually. You mentioned solar's off the table, but agrivoltaic, solar above farming solutions, do those count? Would you differentiate the solar further, or novel inverters, strings for solar to optimize hydrogen production systems? So right off the top, at a high level, generally speaking, agrivoltaics are eligible under through our non-residential energy solutions, renewable energy solutions, NRES, renewable energy deployment program. So that would not be something that we would be seeking in this program. And then novel inverters or strings for solar to optimize hydrogen production systems. I think I would have to know more information about that. But so I don't know if I can necessarily say with confidence yes or no to that one. So I think I would just have to see a proposal to better understand that and its innovation potential.
Thanks, Julia. And I'll just quickly add that within the phase one application, applicants will be able to, essentially explain why they believe their project fits within either the demand side flexibility theme or the alternative EMG theme. So, if you believe that your project does fit within one of those, you'll have the opportunity to explain that rationale within your phase one submittal.
I see that we have a few hands raised again, so I'm going to turn back to our hand raise function for a minute. Mr. Keller, you still have your hand raised. Do you still have a question? Nope. Okay, great.
No,
David Wright
sorry.
is, that's all right, thank you. David Wright is up next.
Yeah, so I just had a question about the dissemination of funds. Are the funds disseminated contingent upon results, or is a certain portion of the funds given for the project in order for it to move forward? Or is it basically you do the project and then based on the results of the project, the funds are disseminated? Thank you.
Thanks for that question, David. Yeah, I would say it's a little bit in between. I wouldn't clarify. I wouldn't say it's based on results. You know, we're really also looking to learn lessons here. We understand that these are going to be innovative technologies that are not always going to be successful. So cost recovery dissemination of funds will essentially be based on the execution stages and milestones identified within that project implementation tracking plan, and whether those milestones are hit or not, and being able to provide, data and explanation as to why a milestone was hit or why it wasn't hit in certain instances. And so it will really be contingent on, whether you successfully deployed the project according to the plan that we collectively agree to. And if that's the case, then, parties will receive the dissemination of funds. So I wouldn't say quite results based, but more milestones based. And I hope that makes some sense.
Yeah, so negative results aren't necessarily not recoverable. It's just that you want to see the work done, essentially.
Yes, thanks, David.
Okay, and I also see Peter Millman, hand raised.
Hi, thanks. So if you're thinking in terms of a submission in using pathway 3, a collaboration with the utility, but you don't have an agreement with a utility, how should we think about submitting a phase 1 proposal? Will it be worth doing, even though you don't have an understanding with the utility at the time of the submission?
Yes. Yeah, I'll let Eli take that first.
Yeah, that's a great question, Peter. The answer is yes. We do recommend that you please do, nonetheless, even if you don't have an agreement today, please do submit under that pathway 1. One thing that perhaps we should have teed up here is that parties who are selected for deployment before they actually agree to deploy, those parties will need to sign a contract with the EDCs. We're referring to that as a standard form agreement. It's a relatively standardized document that will delineate what the relationship looks like between the innovator applicant and the EDC. And so that's something that we are kind of working on behind the scenes, and we will provide proactively to any projects who, coming out of that phase 2 part, we are recommending for potential deployment. Before you can actually deploy, you'll have to sign on to that contract.
Great, thank you.
All right, so I would just like to invite anyone with lingering questions to raise their hand here. We are at time, but I think we'll probably wrap up at this point today, unless there's any other hands raised. But again, this presentation will be recorded, and you will be able to contact myself or Stratogen through the email provided. We'll reach out to you after this, so if you have continued questions after, we can try and address them for you. Eli, any closing thoughts?
No, I'll just jump back to the website. Feel free to shoot us an email at this web address here. Also, if you go onto the website yourself and click the little button that says send us an email, it'll auto-populate an email and you can reach us through there. Please visit our website. And again, any communication will come through directly to us, and we'll follow back up as soon as we reasonably can. But thank you all so much for attending today, and we are really looking forward to seeing some innovative applications come in over the next month and change.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.